When I was 21, I was in an on-again, off-again toxic relationship, and I was trying to get over him. I decided to give dating sites a crack. I tried a few, met a few guys, some decent that never went anywhere, and some that were just plain looking for sex or had serious issues. I hadn't dated since high school since I'd only been in two long-term relationships, fairly close together with people that I had known for a long time. And I'm sure you can imagine I was clueless in the dating scene. I wasn't used to guys trying to trick me into sex, or leading me on, or even how dating really worked, or how many days after the dates do I have to wait for him to text back. After a few failed attempts to find someone, I thought I'd broaden my horizons and really try to find someone serious. I didn't put my eggs in one basket, so I started talking to a guy that wasn't really my type, physically or mentally. But he was smart and funny, so I thought I'd see how things played out, and seeing how most of the guys I'd picked so far about my gut feelings turned out to be terrible ones. This man, who I had nicknamed Guy, can't remember why, but it was a running joke between us, was very, very persistent and very cocky, which I wasn't really into. But he seemed like a cool guy on the other hand, was very knowledgeable, quick-witted, and easy to talk to. We spoke on the phone a few times, and it was reasonably good experiences, but there was something about him that I just didn't really like. As I mentioned previously, he was quite cocky and used to do little annoying things like hang up without saying goodbye, and had an arrogant and pushy demeanor. One day on the phone, I pulled him up on it and told him I believed that it was all up front, and that he wasn't that arrogant, and he was a lot nicer than he let on. He told me that he had an ex-girlfriend who broke up with him because he was too much of a pushover, so he decided that women like guys that were on the arrogant side. I told him I didn't at all, and I spoke to him because I felt like there was something more than that to his personality. I also picked up little things on his profile, such as not liking fat chicks and other things. I am a bigger girl, so I asked him if that was a problem, to which he responded that it wasn't. He had just written down to make himself look better. I decided I needed to try different kinds of men if I wanted to find someone, so I gave Guy a chance. He often suggested meeting at his place over pizzas and movies, which I wasn't quite comfortable, so I suggested to come out to the club with a few friends, which he declined and tried to convince me to come back to his place, which I wasn't really keen on. After he clicked on that I wasn't coming over to his house in the middle of the night, he suggested we go out for coffee. We decided to go to a local coffee shop that I was quite fond of, which was open throughout the night, and around 8 he picked me up and we exchanged pleasantries, and once we were seated I was genuinely surprised by his attentiveness and how much interest he displayed, asking me many questions about myself. Still, something didn't sit right. It wasn't that I didn't like him, there was just something that made me feel uncomfortable. All went well, we chatted about this and that until the question took a strange turn. Have you ever just kissed someone just because you were horny? He asked rather loudly. Considering we were in a crowded cafe, I was taken aback and embarrassed, and hesitated before stuttering, no, not really. I think that's more of a male thing. I can't say I've done that. So no? Sounds sexist. Shut up, I was under pressure at the time. He then asked me a few more innocent questions before switching the topic back, asking if I like oral sex and other oddly worded questions that I can't remember. Sexual questions that were unusual. I lightly told him it was rude to ask me that, but was still tolerant of him. I've encountered many douches, and at the time felt like I wouldn't get much better. Not long after this, he suggested we leave. By this I thought he meant part ways, as he knew I had to meet up with a friend not long after coffee. I was wrong. Went to the counter and he offered to pay, to which I declined. Luckily, he did because ironically I had left my wallet at home. I felt like it was such a cliche but felt super guilty as it makes me feel bad when anyone pays for me. When we got in the car, he started to drive off in a different direction to where I lived, just 5 minutes away. I asked where we were going and he pulled up in the street nearby with little to no streetlights. That was extremely dim and parked outside of a random house. I asked him what we were doing there and he told me he wanted to talk in private, to which I responded that we could talk in private at my front of my house. He argued that it wouldn't be private and that people would look out the windows. I stupidly told him no one would because only my sister was home, and I would text her not to. He kicked up a bit and got slightly angry before agreeing to take me home. This should have been enough for me, but no, I was naive and lonely. When we parked out in the front of my house, we started talking and he tried to lean in for a kiss. To to which I kept pulling away and giving off negative body language, but still was friendly. After a bit, he started asking me to look at him, to which I made jokes. Sometimes in stressful situations, I make jokes to clear the tension. Bad habit. And I kept my distance until he basically turned my head and kissed me. I just went with it, as I was lonely and thought he wasn't that bad looking, and I reasoned that a kiss was just a kiss. After a few seconds, I tried to pull away. He pulled me into a bear hug, to which I half heartedly tried to get out of, but gave up and continued kissing him. A little while later, I tried to pull away and he put me in almost a headlock type hold. Still, somehow, I wasn't concerned enough to get the fuck out of there. Once we got on the back, we cuddled and talked, but then he kept on trying to fondle me. I just kept telling him to stop because it was pissing me off. He was doing it in a jokey way, like, whoops, accidentally brushed your boob. I didn't take it too seriously until it happened a few times. I told him that he had his feel, and enough was enough. I wasn't good at saying no to men back then, not that it's any excuse. And after a couple times, I said I was moving to the other side of the car so he couldn't touch me. I sat there and continued talking when all of a sudden he reached out and pulled me into a cuddle. He was playing with my hair when all of a sudden he pushed my head down, hair wrapped up in his hands. I was confused and tried to push my head back up. When he roughly pushed it down again, I realized what he was doing. I don't know how he did it. Guy was around 6'2", 200 pounds, but I managed to get myself off out of his garb. As I was getting out, he yelled out to come back, that he didn't do anything. You know what you did. And thanks for the coffee. As I said, I slammed the door in his face. I walked quickly but steadily to my front door, even though I was petrified. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me run. He continued yelling out that he had done nothing wrong the whole time while I was walking. I banged down my front door and my younger sister opened it to see me in tears. I told her what had happened and eventually settled down. I swiftly blocked him on Facebook and vowed never to talk to him again. And I kid you not, 3 days later while at work, I received a text message from him. Guy. Hey, you want to get coffee tonight? Me. No question mark? Him. I replied then, after an hour no response. Him. I see what you did there. Me. I'm just curious why you'd even bother asking. Him. Because I think you're cute and I'm curious why you're answering. Me. Sends a picture that reads, you smell like hidden motives, get away from me. I never made contact again after that and blocked his number. A few years on, I was telling someone about him and decided to unblock him on Facebook to show her when I noticed I had a mutual friend. The mutual friend was a girl I was extremely close with in high school who confessed to me that she had been assaulted when she was a child. I told her the whole story and she was stunned. She told me that he worked with her and now lectures criminal justice at a local university, which is laughable. She told me that he had harassed her for months about going on a date with him and would occasionally get quite nasty. And all the time she knew him, she felt uncomfortable around him, even when he was nice. He would guilt, pressure, and have a go at her about this quote unquote date or not messaging him back, etc. Very full on, almost stalkerish. She ended up getting a boyfriend. He was furious, and she didn't hear from him after that. Judging by her time frame, she met him around 3 to 6 months after I did. After my divorce, my sister convinced me to try Tinder. I connected with Darren, who seemed refreshingly straightforward compared to all the other guys I've talked to. His profile mentioned he was a biking enthusiast like me, photos of hiking trails and mountain vistas rather than mirror selfies. We agreed to meet for Sunday morning coffee at a cafe near a popular biking trail. I arrived early, ordered a latte, and claimed a table by the window. Darren arrived precisely on time, looking just like his photos. The conversation started easily enough, covering our shared interests in cycling and outdoor activities. And about 20 minutes in, he suggested we take our coffees outside to enjoy the nice weather. It seemed reasonable, so I followed him to a small patio area behind the cafe. It was deserted, which should have been my first warning sign on such a beautiful morning. The shift in his demeanor was subtle at first. His questions became more personal, almost invasive. Did I live alone? Did anyone know where I was today? Why had my marriage really ended? When I checked my phone, partially from discomfort, partially to check the time, he asked sharply, Are you talking to someone about me? Just checking the time, I replied, trying to keep my voice casual. I should probably head out soon. I promised my sister I'd help her with something in the afternoon. His expression darkened. You didn't mention any plans earlier. I stood up gathering my things. It slipped my mind. This was nice though. Darren remained seated, blocking the narrow path back to the cafe. Your sister doesn't expect you, he said flatly. You told her you'd be biking all day. My heart stuttered. I didn't mention any specific plans to him. Actually, I need to use the restroom before I go, I said, trying to move past him toward the cafe. He stood then, towering over me. Your bike is in your car, right? The red Trek? We could ride together. I never told him what kind of bike I own, or its color. I'm not feeling well, I managed, backing away. I think I'll skip riding today. As I turned to hurry back inside, he grabbed my wrist. I've been watching you on the trail for months, he said quietly. You never notice anyone around you when you're riding. It's dangerous, being so unaware. At that moment, the cafe door opened and two baristas came out for their break. Tyrion immediately released me, his expression instantly transforming back to the casual friendliness. I hurried past them and through the cafe and straight to my car, hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. The next few nights, I kept hearing rustling coming from the side of my house. We've been having a raccoon problem, so I didn't think too much of it. And a few mornings later, I entered the garage and found the side garage door slightly open. I haven't opened that door in weeks and it sent chills down my spine seeing it open. I was scanning around the garage and I found a cycling water bottle on one of the shelves with a note saying, "Looking forward to our ride. I'll find you on the trail." My heart sank, since it had to be Darren. So I immediately called the police. When the police came, they found the evidence that someone had been entering my garage that night to tamper with my bike, loosening brake cables, weakening spokes. I quickly changed my locks and reported Darren to the police. When the police went to his place, they discovered camera equipment in his apartment with hundreds of photos of me in various trails, at my workplace, and entering my home. Darren got arrested for stalking, breaking, and entering right after. I sold my bike, I don't go hiking anymore, and I certainly don't do coffee dates online.